Well, good afternoon, guys. I am on the Mount Olympus Trail right now. It is February 26th, and I'm actually here to look for spring plants because it might be visible here, but this has been a very early spring, and I'm surprised at how early it came. I knew this was going to be a warm winter, or that it was being one, and that spring would likely come early, but it really snuck up on me. Already in the valley, some bushes are getting ready to open up their leaves. The Oregon grapes are starting to bloom. And the tulips are coming up in my yard. They're actually really surprised me because normally they only come up in late March, but it's a whole month ahead that they're starting to emerge. And they're quite a ways into that, so I'm sure we'll find some things here in addition to this other stuff we've seen, like actually interesting plants. So let's just get started. Now, right now I am heading over to what I called in two previous videos my favorite Wasatch Foothills Mountain Brush Forest, or something like that. But on the way there, I'm going to talk about these two plants. This guy, which is clearly a member of Asteraceae, is just starting to leaf out. And I believe this is Ericameria obovata. I'm not totally sure, but if it is, that's kind of cool because it's a plant that I believe is restricted to Utah in rocky areas like this. You can see it's growing on these rocks. Some of its other friends, which I'll talk about in a second. Like right there. Very well adapted to this habitat. But anyways, it's a clearly member of Asteraceae as indicated by its spent inflorescence heads. And it just looks that way, you know, and if it was blooming it'd be a lot more obvious. And right next to it is Berberis repens, sometimes called Mahonia repens. I should mention that I say this a lot, Mahonia has since been revised to be included within Berberis as like a subgenus or something like that. You can see it's just starting to bloom here. It's not quite there yet, but it's getting there. Actually, some of those flowers are about to open up. Berberis has, which is interesting for eudicots, flowers with parts of free. It's for the most part a characteristic of Berberis, and then really not a whole lot of other families within the eudicots, or eudicots I should say. I think Polygonaceae also has that. This is a very close relative of the Berberis or Mahonia aquifolium that you see very commonly in cultivation, but I think this one should be used more often. Berberis aquifolium isn't quite native to Utah. It's native to nearby, but this one is truly native and quite abundant and quite strong. Let's never view that Ericameria again. Alright, let's move on. Coming around this bend now, we can really get a nice picture of what this environment would look like in summer or late spring just by looking at the dead plants. Got a lot of these spent penstemons, which I'm pretty sure are Penstemon platyphyllus, a species almost completely endemic to the foothills in the Wasatch Front. Not to mention the much more widespread Wyethia amplexicaulis. Very distinctive of its dead foliage. This one typically is probably going to come out in late March and then bloom in mid to late May. Sorry for the cut there, someone just ran by me and I had to move my poles off the trail, but anyways, and you can also of course see the Quercus gimbelii, which I'll probably talk about more later. That one's also going to leaf out. It's one of the last trees in the foothills to leaf out. It's pretty late, typically only doing it in May. But yeah, let's move on. Well, one of the things I was hoping to see in this section was Erythronium grandiflorum starting to come up, but I might be a little too early for that, which is a little surprising to me because of the tulips coming up my yard. But anyways, I've not seen any yet. Maybe on the way down I will. No, that's something else, never mind. Sorry if you couldn't see that, I was going to adjust later if it was in fact Erythronium grandiflorum. I've been seeing some plants that look like they might be Claytonia perfoliatum just starting to emerge, but I don't know for sure. It's a little hard to tell without the perfoliate flower stalk or central stalk. Let's keep moving. I think there's some other interesting things I can see and talk about. Just to briefly talk about my plans, I mentioned I'm going to Death Valley. I'll be filming there March 21st, which I'm really worried might be a little too late to take advantage of the full-on super bloom. It's already really nice right now, and it's going to get quite hot the next 2 weeks, so I'm worried it's going to dry everything out too early. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some things when I get there, especially at higher elevations, but I'm just really nervous. And I had the opportunity to book a week earlier, and I think that would have been better in hindsight, but what can you do? Look at this, just alongside this trail, I found a tiny little Cymopterus longipes. That's the most common Cymopterus you find along here. So I'm pretty happy to see that. Of course, Cymopterus and Lomatium are quite hard to tell apart from each other at times, without seeing the fruit at least. though I mean, pretty much every large species between the two is a lomatium. But there's also small lomatiums and small Cymopteruses, so that's one thing to look for when trying to tell them apart. But it's really something you just need some experience to. And honestly, I think guides should probably, like flora books, should start keying them together, because it's just too ridiculous to try and tell them apart without seeing fruit, which you often don't. Well, there's another one. How nice. Yeah, really not seeing a lot of other things here. I might see a Eriogonum linearifolia. It's also known as Indian potato. A presumably edible, formerly considered member of the same genus, but definitely closely related one around here. I know there's some that grow here, and this is around the time, well, not right now, but very early spring is when you start to see them come up. So let's head on still. Two more things I can talk about for a second. Sorry this video is so stop and starty, but that's just the nature of the game when you're trying to look for things like this so early in spring. But anyways, this is Eriogonum racemosum, or racemosa, I can't quite remember, but also known as Redroot Buckwheat. It's a very common one in the foothills of the Wasatch. There's its spent stem from last year. So it's pretty clearly, seems to be a perennial at least. It seems to flower more in autumn, but its leaves are just coming up now. So definitely, again, pretty adapted to at least starting in early spring. Of course, we also got these guys here. Whoa, whoops. Achillea millefolium, commonly known as Yarrow. I think it's actually a bit of a species complex. It's a very widespread species. I think it's also found in the Old World as well. Remember Asteraceae? See by its spent inflorescence from years gone past. Sorry, I was speaking downward for a bit, maybe not that loudly, but anyways, that's what it looks like. These very feathery leaves. You know, a lot of plants with the name millefolium in their scientific name, or milfoil, are going to look a lot like this. These very feathery leaves. Just keep that in mind if you're ever wondering about stuff in the future. Want to see Salt Lake City? That's a new development in Holiday that got started not too long ago after it had been sitting empty for like 15 years. It's a more traditional downtown of Holiday. See if we right in those branches, Mill Creek. A lot of those buildings didn't exist until just like within the last 5 years it came up. There's Sugar House and the rest of Salt Lake City. How nice. Well, I'm not seeing anything new as I continue hiking, and the trail's only getting higher up, so I doubt I'll see anything else coming up that I haven't talked about yet. That Douglas fir is pretty cool. I guess that was worth hiking up to. But anyways, I think I was a little over optimistic about what I'd see this early in the year on this trail, but you know, this video kept my mind fresh, and hopefully it'll keep yours fresh as well. So thanks for watching. Spring is just around the corner. In fact, it's basically already on us, as you guys saw, so just stay tuned and see you next time.